Hello and welcome to another webinar from HTAI presented by the Information Retrieval Interest Group. This webinar has been developed by the HTAI Information Retrieval Group. This is an interest group for individuals who provide information resources, conduct research, and develop information management issues that support HTA decision-making. To submit any questions during the webinar, please use the Slido link that is provided in the chat. A Q&A session will be facilitated during the final portion of the webinar. Thank you again for joining us. I will now hand things over to our hosts to formally welcome and introduce today's webinar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on SuRe. My name is Amanda Hodson. I am the co-chair of the HTAI Information Retrieval Special Interest Group. We are a group that supports information specialists and all individuals who are interested in information seeking for the purpose of health technology assessment. In addition to today's webinar, our committee is preparing a workshop agenda for this year's HTAI annual meeting in Utrecht, Netherlands on June 25th. If you would like further information on how you can participate in this year's event, please contact myself or our chair, Ingrid Harbo. And I'd like to introduce Ingrid on the call this morning. Hi, Ingrid. Our contact details can be found on the special interest group page of the HTAI website. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speakers today. Jana Isojarvi is an independent information specialist with more than a decade of experience in supporting systematic reviews, economic evaluations, and health technology assessments. Her previous employers include the Finnish Office for Health Technology Assessment and York Health Economics Consortium. Jana is a co-manager of SuRe, and she has been involved with the resource since 2011. Julie Glanville is a qualified librarian who has worked in systematic reviews for more than 25 years and is currently an independent consultant focusing on information retrieval for systematic reviews. Julie is a co-convener of the Cochrane Information Retrieval Methods Group, a co-author of the Cochrane Handbook chapter on searching for evidence, and a co-manager of the ISSG search filter resource. And like Jana, Julie is also a co-manager of SuRe. So welcome Jana and Julie, and thank you very much for presenting today. I'll pass it over to you now for the presentation.
Thank you, Amanda, for the introductions. Naomi, could we please have the first slide? Thank you very much. If you could go a couple of slides backwards to the agenda. Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name is Jana Isojarvi, as Amanda kindly introduced me. And this is our agenda for today. I will be starting with a little trip to history, how SuRe got started. And then I will talk about SuRe contents and structure. And then Julie will take over and talk about in more detail how we are working and how we are building SuRe. And then we'll finish with what we have in store for the future. And could we now have and this is just to remind who we are. So we are both co-managers of SuRe. Thank you. So SuRe has been around 11 years. Everything started back in November 2011 when a group of 7 information specialists and IRG members thought that it would be very nice to have a website or a tool, a place where you can go to and find the latest research evidence on information retrieval issues, nicely assembled and summarized. And the reason why we wanted to do this is that we were thinking, and we are still thinking, that there are so many research papers about information retrieval being published all the time that it takes a lot of time and effort to try and stay up to date and read every paper and apply that to your everyday work. And we also thought that handbooks such as Cochrane Handbook mainly focus on effectiveness and adverse effects. And when we are undertaking HTAs, we need to find information on not only on those topics, but on other topics as well. So those were the main reasons. And we started working, and in 2013, the first version of SuRe Info was published. And at first it was published as a section of the HTAI portal. And last year, in October, after a couple of technical difficulties, we decided that it would be nice to celebrate our birthday and have a new platform and a refreshed look. So in the beginning, there were only 7 of us who got everything underway, but during those 11 years we have grown, and we are now a team of 29 international volunteer information specialists, and we are trying our best to keep SuRe Info up to date as well as we can. So can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is the structure of SuRe Info. SuRe Info has 2 sections. The first section talks about general search methods that you can apply to almost to any topic you are working on. And the second section deals with specific search methods that are relevant to other areas than just effectiveness and adverse effects. And both of these sections are made up of chapters. In SuRe Info, there are 17 chapters altogether, and each of them is a summary, a concise summary of what the current research evidence has to say about this particular information retrieval aspect. And all the papers that are included in the chapter are critically appraised, and we write a structured appraisal. And in the reference list, there are links to this structured appraisal, so you can go and read what we have to say and what we are thinking about these papers and why we think they are important to be included in the chapter. And we also provide links to free full text of these research papers if they are available. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So these are the chapters that are included in the general search methods chapter. And I am thinking that this chapter is almost like the basics you need to know about information retrieval. And if they might be useful if you are new to the field and you want to find information about how to develop your search strategies and how to limit your search and how to document and report your search. And we also talk about if there are any other search approaches to use in addition to database searching. And can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. And the second section deals with specific aspects of health technologies and searching for other areas that are important in HTA. And this section is mainly structured around the structure of HTA core model that has been developed and published by UNEHTA, European Network for Health Technology Assessment. And we wanted to choose this model as the structure of this chapter, this section, because this is it has been a long-standing effort to build a framework on how to produce HTAs and how to disseminate HTA information. And all other chapters, except the last one, qualitative research, are also domains in the HTA core model. And all the other chapters are ready and available, except the social aspects chapter that is still under development. And we will hopefully be publishing that very soon. So as you can see, this is HTA, the information needs of HTA are very wide. So if you are interested in safety or cost and economic evaluation or organizational aspects, this chapter will be, this section will be very useful for you. And I now can hand over to Julie.
Thanks, Jana. Hello, I'm Julie Glanville. Could I have the next slide, please? So I'm going to talk briefly about how we go about creating the SuRe Info chapters. Each of the chapters has an author team, and the number of authors varies from between about 2 and 6. Each of the teams is sort of semi-autonomous and will develop its own methods for identifying new studies to go into the chapters. But typically what an author team will do is run topic-specific search strategies in selected relevant databases. And probably most of us are setting up current awareness searches so that every month we get some new documents to look at that might be relevant to our chapters. We're also doing other ways to using other methods to try and identify relevant papers. We're probably looking at current awareness lists from particular information groups and email lists that we subscribe to. We are looking at the existing searching guidelines as these get updated to see if there is new evidence. And a lot of us also have personal reference collections that we are using, particularly when we first write the chapters. We're really concerned as authors not to reinvent the wheel. Therefore, some of the chapters in SuRe Info are summaries of other publications. If there is already very high quality, detailed guidance on how to carry out the searches for a particular topic, then we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to make use of that information. So in particular, I'm thinking about the effects and safety information in the Cochrane Handbook. So in terms of the effects and safety chapter in SuRe Info, we largely summarize the Cochrane Handbook. In terms of the diagnostic test accuracy chapter, we've used the Cochrane DTA searching chapter as the basis for that chapter. And then over the years, we have updated it as new evidence has been identified. The Cochrane DTA chapter hasn't been updated, but we know that very soon it will be released. So at that point, we will then make sure that the chapter is informed by the updated Cochrane DTA chapter, and then we will go on updating that in turn with information as it becomes available. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Where we know good information is available already, we try to make use of that. Next slide, please. Once we've identified some new papers which we think might be relevant to the chapters, we apply some inclusion criteria. We want the new information to be relevant to information retrieval, so it's got to be about searching, and it also needs to be relevant to the chapter that it's going to be included in. We want it to focus on current evidence, the latest information on specific methodological issues. So historical papers or historical surveys are not really going to be included in the chapters. We're looking for papers that provide research findings for completed scientific studies. And we're interested in systematic reviews, primary studies, evidence syntheses, theses, any form of research where we've got some sort of research evidence being reported. We're not so interested in opinion pieces and narrative reviews. And we need papers that describe how they went about their research so that we can try to judge the quality of the study. We also want results that are generalizable and usable to other HTA information specialists or transferable to other projects or studies. So very niche papers about very specific issues, or perhaps case studies sometimes might not be considered eligible for inclusion in the chapters. Next slide, please. As Jana's mentioned, we critically appraise each of the papers that we include in a chapter. This includes a new short description of the study written by the by the chapter authors, a statement of the limitations of the study that were identified by the study's authors, and then any further limitations that we've identified as we read the paper. We also apply some SuRe keywords, and we try to describe the study type and also indicate if there are any other chapters that the paper might inform. Next slide, please. So this is an example of a critical appraisal. At the top, you have the reference that's being appraised. You can see here there's a short description written by the SuRe authors of the paper from the perspective of its contribution to the SuRe chapter. There's then a brief description of the limitations that the authors of this paper have identified, and then some particular limitations that we also wanted to highlight. So as you read the SuRe chapters, they're very high level, and they summarize the state of the evidence. If there's a particular issue you want to look at in more detail, then reading the critical appraisals might give you a bit more context about the particular issues. Next slide, please. So once we've identified the key messages from a new piece of research, we add it to the chapter. Now, depending on what the new findings are, different things might happen to the text within the chapter. If we've identified a systematic review or a high quality evidence synthesis that tells us what the current state of evidence is on a particular issue, then we might replace a sentence or two sentences in the chapter completely with the evidence from this new synthesis. If we're finding some brand new evidence, which we haven't on a topic that isn't already included in a chapter, then we would add some new text. And if we're finding an additional piece of evidence that extends what we all have already written in a chapter, then we will adapt the sentences around that issue to reflect whether the evidence is stronger or weaker as a result of the new paper that we've identified. So various things can happen, and sometimes the impact of a new paper may just be to add another reference to the list and no changing of the text. Other times there may be changes to the actual text of the chapter. And what we've recently introduced in the last update was a little summary at the beginning of the chapter about what's new in this update, in which we summarize what we've changed based on the evidence added to the chapter in the last 6 months. Next slide, please. And this is just to show you an example of a chapter. This is the economic evaluation chapter, and just showing you the higher level nature of the SuRe chapter. Most of the chapters about particular issues such as safety or economic evaluations or diagnostic test accuracies are written in the same structure. They focus on the sources to search, and then they talk about how to search the databases and other resources and other techniques to use to search. Next slide, please. This just shows you, as Jana was mentioning earlier, at the end of every chapter, we have a reference list. And here you can see there are links through to the full documents and also links through to the publication appraisals, the little critical appraisals that we've written as part of creating the chapter. Next slide, please. I mentioned that the authors are sort of semi-autonomous. We do have an author's manual, which guides the way we prepare the chapters, and this sets out approaches that we can use and guidance on how many people should write the chapter. We ask that the chapter authors do not write the appraisals of publications they're part of. Sometimes this can be quite challenging because some of the author groups on chapters are quite small, but we do try to make sure that even if it involving a third person to just critique those appraisals, we try to make sure that authors aren't writing appraisals of their own work. Texts prepared by non-English speakers are checked by an English speaker, And as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to avoid duplication of work. So when we encounter good publications from other people, we try to make use of that as far as possible if it's appropriate. Next slide, please. Thank you. To help the authors share information and also to keep copies, to keep background copies of documents and things like the manual, we have a shared workspace for storing documents. We use Google Docs. We also, as Jana has said, we have a Google website which we launched last year. This has made it much more straightforward to allow the authors to edit and format the chapters. So all co-authors can now edit their chapters and also create and edit their own appraisals. And this means hopefully that it will free up some more of Jana and my time to do other things to develop the site. We also know that authors will be using other resources to manage their chapters. So they'll, depending on what they have access to, some authors will be using EndNote, for example, to manage their references, and other people will be using other packages like Zotero, and they're probably using other technologies as well to make sure their chapters are kept up to date. We don't mind how authors do this work. People can organize their own ways of managing the chapter updating. Next slide, please. So I just thought I'd talk now about some of the ways that we hope that SuRe can help in HTAI information retrieval practice. So for information specialists and other researchers interested in information retrieval to inform HTA, SuRe is a way to help us keep up to date with the latest developments. An awful lot of research is being published in information retrieval, and what we're hoping here is that we are saving people a lot of time by identifying and sifting the evidence and summarizing it and keeping the overall summary of what's best practice up to date for you, saving you time so you can concentrate on other things. We hope also that this means, because people might be made aware of new techniques and new methods more quickly, that these techniques and methods might get into practice more quickly and introduce efficiencies into the ways we do HTA. And I think one of the most important aspects of SuRe is that it enables us to identify research gaps. There are a whole series of methods and approaches that we use in information retrieval for which there is no evidence. So it's very clear to see from reading a chapter in SuRe where further research, where research would be valuable. Next slide, please. So recently, Jana and I wrote a paper about SuRe, and we produced in that paper some scenarios about particular occasions where we think SuRe might be useful. So I'm just going to rehearse some of these scenarios to give you a feel for how we think SuRe might fit into your work life if you're doing searches to inform HTA processes. So this first scenario is about somebody who, the last time they did a search for economic evaluations, they searched the HEED database and then HSEED, but they're not sure about whether these are still the gold standard databases to search. So to answer this question, you would go to the SuRe chapter on costs and economic evaluation, which is where you would find information on where to search for economic evaluations. And in this chapter, you will see that the authors note that HEED is no longer available. It's a closed database and no longer accessible. And NHS-EAD has ceased updating. And whilst the archive can be searched, it's no longer so useful for identifying current information. And obviously, when we're doing HTAs, we're really interested in current economic evaluations to a large extent. So the chapter then goes on to provide a list of information sources that you should consider now when you're trying to search for economic evaluations. And so to replace HEED and NHS-EAD, there are other suggestions about other resources to search. Next slide, please. So the second scenario is about general approaches to searching. And in this scenario, we have an inquirer who has read a paper that says we should replace database searches with co-citation analysis. Should I change my practice for my next HTA and not search databases but do co-citation analysis? So usually a single study is not going to be significant enough to make us change what we do routinely. So it's a good idea to check whether this is the only paper on this co-citation analysis topic, or whether there's other data out there, and whether there's a strong view now whether you should consider co-citation analysis as an alternative to database searching. So in SuRe, there's a chapter called Value of Using Different Search Approaches, which has a section on citation searching and also has a subsection on co-citation searching. At the time we wrote this paper, there were two studies that looked at co-citation analysis, and there was sort of it's quite a cautious, the chapter suggests a cautious approach to adopting this approach at that point, because the searches did prove to be highly sensitive, but not 100% sensitive. And I think it suggests that this might be used as an additional search approach rather than replacing database searching. So at the point at which we wrote the paper, I think that the evidence about co-citation analysis was still quite sparse. This has changed. I mean, more recently, we've seen more papers about co-citation analysis, and the evidence is becoming more and more detailed about what it might be useful for and where it might help out. So the current version is a lot more detailed about what the benefit of co-citation analysis might be. Although I think it's still just not strong enough to say that you should replace database searching with it. Next slide, please. So this next question is about how to report your searches in an HTA report. This is obviously a really key question, especially if you're new to searching and don't know how the search documentation, the search process should be reported in an HTA report. So in the SuRe, there is a chapter on documenting and reporting the search process. And this is a very brief but very clear chapter on the components of what you should include in the reporting. And it also has a table at the bottom of the chapter that synthesizes information from various reporting standards and research articles describing what information is typically reported in each section of a report. And this indicates the level of detail that an author should provide about the search write-up in an HTA report. Next slide, please. So this fourth scenario is about somebody who's done lots of searches for HTAs looking at effects and safety from RCTs, and has also done reviews of economic evaluations, but is now faced with doing searches to inform a review of qualitative evidence. And whilst PICO is a good question formulation structure for reviews of effects and safety and economic evaluations, the query really is, does PICO work when I'm trying to do a review of qualitative research? Syntheses of qualitative research can be very different in terms of the search approaches used. So again, within SuRe, there is a chapter on qualitative research, which suggests the range of different question structures that could be explored, given that this is a qualitative research question, to try and find the best fit for that particular research question. Thank you. Next slide. So now I'm going to hand back to Jana, who's going to talk about future plans.
Thank you, Julie. SuRe has been around for a long time, 11 years already, and we would like to think that it is already quite well known. At least we have been trying our best to promote it in conferences by giving presentations and handing out leaflets, and we have also written several papers on SuRe, but there are always room for improvement. So at the moment we are hoping to build a social media presence and we might, for example, tweet about new chapters or if chapters are updated. And there are several information retrieval mailing lists and HTA mailing lists, and where people ask questions and comments about searching. And we are hoping to be more active and promote SuRe info on mailing lists and in response to those questions. And resource lists, building resource lists or referring to published resource lists within chapters is something we are also thinking about. At the moment, the Cochrane Handbook Supplement 2 is for the chapter on searching is a very extensive resource list, but we are hoping that we might find more resource lists to link to. At the moment, you are able to give feedback on SuRe info by sending us email, but we are hoping that we are able to add feedback forms very soon. And we are always looking to recruit new volunteers. We're already a team of 29 information specialists, but we are always looking for more assistance and more help to develop new topics, and maybe help with marketing and editorial work. And we would like very much to hear from you if you are interested in joining us. And we have the next slide, please. So if we were to summarize what SuRe info is, it is an open access web resource. No firewall, no paywall, free of charge everywhere around the world. And we are not trying to be a major method handbooks or substitute method handbooks, or be a complete bibliography of all published research evidence in information retrieval. But instead, we are trying to provide an overview of what the current research evidence in information retrieval for health technology assessment is saying. And by providing that overview, we are hoping that we are helping searchers and those who are in need of help in information retrieval. We are hoping to help them stay up to date with the latest developments in the field. And we are also hoping to offer research-based advice in everyday searching issues. So if at the moment I would be working on a search and find that I have a problem and I need to look up for some helpful information and advice, I'll go to SuRe info to see if there is help available. Next slide, please. So if you have any questions, we are very happy to answer them now, but you can always send us your questions later. And we would be very delighted to hear from you if you would like to get involved. So please get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jana and Julie, for your presentation today. I think I know I can speak for many of us that the scenarios you've presented, we encounter on a daily basis in the information specialist world and in the HTA world. So thank you very, very much. I have some questions from our chat, and if you would like to take some questions now. You've mentioned, you've talked about volunteering for SuRe info. If someone is interested in volunteering, how much time would you say is typically involved, or what sort of commitment is required to participate?
Shall I have a go at that, Jana?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think it all depends on the topic. So the I update the economic evaluation chapter, and there is only a few papers a year on economic evaluations. So the amount of work involved is relatively small. So, you know, maybe a couple of days a year to keep on top of the new publications and then deal with any new papers that need to be included in a chapter. But other chapters are much, much bigger. So thinking about effects or thinking about safety, those are much bigger chapters. So we need larger author teams, and I imagine that their workload is going to be larger, and they probably are looking at more than several days a year to help out. But the larger the author teams, the more the work can be, the smaller the parcels of work can be.
Thanks, Julie. And just a note for the viewers that you can still use the chat on the live stream. So you can just use the link and post in the chat on the live stream, and we will still be able to receive your questions for the Q&A session. You've talked a lot about, librarians and information specialists. If you are not an information specialist or a librarian, how could you still participate in SuRe?
Jana, do you want to have a go?
Yes, thank you, Julie. Yes, I don't see any problem if you are interested in volunteering and joining us. You are, whatever your background is, you are welcome to join. If you are interested in searching and interested in health technology assessment, please get in touch. And if you don't, you might be able to undertake some searches for the chapters, or maybe screen the articles, screen the search results for inclusion in the chapters, or write critical appraisals. Or you might even want to edit the chapters, because the authors can now edit the chapters themselves on the Google, on our new website. So you might be able to edit the website. So we are not an information specialist only.
Excellent. Thanks for clarifying that. Thank you, Jana. So we have a few more questions in the chat here. So I'm just going to speak to some of them. Do you include information about software, such as tools that help out with our work?
I think that might be, I don't want to say something sweeping, because there could well be some of the authors who have included evaluations of software in their chapters that I can't remember at the moment. I think I think people will report evaluations of databases. So for example, if there's an evaluation of Medline or an evaluation of Embase, then they would report that. But in terms of tools to carry out the searches, I think that would, again, it would have to be evidence-based if they were going to report them. It wouldn't just be descriptive. A lot of papers about tools tend to be descriptive rather than evaluations. So if information about tools was included in a chapter, it would be in the form of an evaluation of that tool, indicating its strengths and weaknesses. Jana, I don't know if you can remember any evaluations of tools.
No, I don't. As you said, the papers are mostly descriptive. Yeah, I haven't seen any evaluations.
Thank you both. We have another question here. Do you plan to release a SuRe app, or does the SuRe site have an app?
We don't have an app.
No, we don't.
Unfortunately, we're all doing this as volunteers, so we have no funding. It might be something that HTAI might like to look at, but again, if somebody is interested in developing an app for us, that might be very interesting.
An exciting possibility, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a question here about an example. So you showed us an example of cost and economic appraisal. Considering cost and economic evaluation are context specific, how do you do these appraisals?
The searching for economic studies is usually involves searching for the subject of the economic appraisal, so perhaps a new technology, a new drug, or a new method of delivering care. and then combining the search terms to find that new intervention or that new technology or method of care, with search terms that focus in on what economic evaluations are described as. So words like cost effectiveness, economic evaluation, Markov model. So lots of terms to capture the terms that suggest a study is an economic evaluation rather than an RCT or a case report or whatever. So usually the search involves building a strategy that will look for the topic of interest combined with terms that suggest the study is an economic evaluation. I hope that is answering the question that was asked.
Yes, thank you very much, Julie. Thanks. We have another question, sort of an invitation to speak again, but would you be able to do a walkthrough presentation of SuRe in the future to show us how to use it and demonstrate?
Jana?
Sure, why not? And if we still have time, about 15 minutes left of this webinar, so maybe we can do a quick presentation.
Yeah, we could go right to the link.
Yeah,
that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
And Bryce, if you're on the line, I'm not sure, are we able to do that on the live
course.
stream today?
Yeah, there's been a link posted in the YouTube chat, as well as Ingrid provided a link directly. So whomever would like to demonstrate, just feel free to click that link and share your screen.
okay.
So Jana, would you like to do
Yes,
that and share your
yes.
screen?
Yes, I'm happy
Wonderful.
to. Just a moment. Okay. Yes, let me minimize my page. So the official address for SuRe is here. This is the short address, but you can use the address Ingrid has posted. And this is the main page, and introduces the first there is the introduction, a link to the author's manual, a link to the HTA core model if you are not familiar with it just yet. There's a link to that if you would like to look at it in more detail and some more information about your data. And you can also see who are working, who we are. So here's a list of the whole project team. So as you can see, we are quite many of us are from Europe, from UK, Finland, Norway, Italy, Netherlands, but also a bunch of people come from Canada. And then I go back to the start page, and here's the list of the chapters, and you can also use the if I can show this. Yes. There's also a menu to the chapters on the right-hand side of the page, drop-down menu you can use to go into the chapters. So if I would be interested in how to develop my search strategy, I would just go to the chapter, click the link, and see what the chapter has to say. So this chapter was updated in October. And here's the information, what's new in this chapter. 3 new studies have been added. Here's the introduction. And this chapter talks about sensitivity and precision of searches and how to structure the search. It describes the PICO and then gives some information on selecting search terms and using Boolean operators, checking and testing your searches. And here's the reference list. And there are links to full text if they are available. And in this chapter, the publication appraisals haven't been prepared for any of these papers, but if there was an appraisal, there would be a link. Then I'll show another example. So if you are interested in diagnostic accuracy, finding information about diagnostic accuracy studies. So this is the go-to chapter. And as you can see, the chapters are structured quite a lot along the same lines. This chapter also has introduction. It discusses sources to search. So here's a list of it. Here's the sources that are relevant to diagnostic accuracy studies, finding diagnostic accuracy studies. And there's some information about designing search strategies for finding DTA studies and how to report them, how to report your searches. And here's the reference list, and here's an example of a publication appraisal. And in a publication appraisal, there's a short description of the paper in question, and also limitations of the study stated by the study authors, and limitations stated by the reviewers who have written this appraisal. So SuRe info works that way, that you know that you have a problem, and you go to SuRe info and you select the chapter that is relevant to your query, and then you read the chapter and see if it resolves your question. So this was a very brief tour of SuRe info.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you for the live demo and tour. That's fantastic. I did have another question from the chat, and maybe we skipped over that in the demo, but someone was asking if you do have a chapter on artificial intelligence or machine learning techniques and their validation, and I'm not sure about that either.
I think it may be mentioned briefly in some of the general chapters.
Yes.
It's probably not mentioned in the specific chapters, but I think it will be mentioned generally in things like designing search strategies. I think it may mention things like using PubMed, PubReminer, and tools like that. So yeah, as more research becomes available on, particularly I say identifying search terms and structuring searches and maybe translating searches, that would go into those general chapters.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So I'm just checking out the chat here. A lot of questions and comments, asking for more workshops, for more information. So this is wonderful. I'd like to say on behalf of both Ingrid and myself, thank you both, Jana and Julie, for your presentation today. It's been wonderful to spend some time looking at SuRe info and really highlighting this resource. So on behalf of the Information Retrieval Special Interest Group at HTAI, thank you both very, very much. Would like to remind viewers today of our full-day workshop at the upcoming HTAI annual meeting in June in Utrecht, Netherlands, and I believe a link to that information will be put into the live stream today as well. So be sure to look out for that as well. So with that, I'd like to close the webinar today. Thank you all for attending and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.